Hello and welcome to today's windy and rainy running commentary. I think I'm calling good Shabbos. I think I'm calling it a raining commentary, not just a running commentary, because it's rainy and it's windy. It's supposed to be 70 miles per hour winds today in Central Park. Anyway, hopefully I got my wind protector over here and we'll be able to share a thought. So I'm going to share two things today. One is on this week's Torah portion. Both of them will be related to the Torah portion, but one is a generic, one of my most favorite talks about this week's Parsha of Beshalach, when it talks about the splitting of the sea. So many things to look at that water right there, talking about God's hand in our running commentary here. So we have the splitting of the sea. There's so much about it. Just share one thought, that the Rebbe says that water is nature, and it was getting in the way of people. It was getting in the way of the people going towards God, and it's a problem. But the Rebbe says, look what happened. The sea split, and not only did it not get in the way, but it helped the Jewish people reach their goal, to get closer to God. But in whose merit did the sea split? Of course, there's many different points about this, but the one the Rebbe's talking now is, he says, Heim hi kiruhu tchila. It was the children. It was in the children's merit. The children who were raised in a very secular, opposite of holy environment in Egypt, in Mitzrayim, but they were raised with that every law and every custom, even a minhag, was holy and special, and that caused the Jewish people to merit the sea splits. Not only did it not interfere with what they wanted to do with their holy goals, but it actually supported them. The Rebbe said so much so that it's so important to have the Jewish children live with even the customs. And today, he says, as Parshas Beshalach, it's Shabbat Shira, it's a custom to feed the birds. It's a custom from the Maharal Prague. Said that he kissed the hands of the people, of the children who fed the birds, or the teacher who inspired the children to feed the birds, or both. And because the birds were there and helped in the singing and the chanting when the Jewish people crossed the sea. The Rebbe says the most phenomenal thing about this. He says, and the water turned into a wall, protecting them from the right side and from the left side. What's the right side and what's the left side? So the Rebbe says that the Yetzer Hara, the objections, the distractions of the world, can come in two forms. It can come from the right side and try to interfere with a person's service of God, or from the left side. And in this case, the right side is somebody who has plenty, someone who's very wealthy, very healthy, very happy, influential. He's got all the honor in the world. He's got everything he needs. And then he says to himself, I'm good, I'm strong, I'm powerful. I don't need God. Who needs God? God's for the people in the desert over there who are wandering about aimlessly, the snakes and scorpions. God is for the poor and the downtrodden. But I have everything. What do I need God for? That's one approach of the Yetzer Hara. Another approach, Mismolim, from the left side. Somebody who's poor, downtrodden, not doing well. And he says, gotta make a living. Sorry, can't be that honest in my business. I gotta tweak things to make it work. And then he says, Shabbos, it's an important day, but you know what? When God will provide me enough money to close my store on Shabbos, then I'll close it. But until then, I need to work on Shabbos. And the same with davening. I don't have time for davening, for tefillin, to find kosher food, to pay extra for kosher food. All those things. When things are good, I'll get there. So the Rebbe says, if we train our children, train our children right, that and go in the path of God, so much so Egypt, they didn't change the customs. They kept their name, the Jewish names. Are your kids being called by their Jewish names? Are you being called by a Jewish name? They didn't change their clothing. They wore Jewish clothing, garb. They spoke Hebrew, the language of the Jews. And even the customs were so important to them that they merited to split the sea, that nature wouldn't be an obstruction to God, rather it would be a support. That's the Dvar Torah for today. Next thing, if you noticed in the comment, we're starting a new world, a new era. It's been 70 years since the Rebbe became Rebbe, since he assumed leadership in 1950. The Rebbe's edited, published talks are called the Likutei Sichas. There's 1,227 edited, published talks. There's a lot more books, but they're all in different various forms. This is the keynote, the main published talks of the Rebbe. There's a group that got together to help us, simple folks like me, and great folks like you, to study, to go through every one of those 1,227 talks in various forms, if you want. And they're providing all the tools we need, from audio and video, from hour-long sessions to 3 minutes a week. 3-minute sessions. Who could say no to that? If you don't have 3 minutes to dedicate to this, we gotta figure something out. So here's my urge, my plea, my request, and my commitment, God willing. I commit to doing a running commentary on every one of those 1,227 talks. It's over the span of 8 years. So this is my incentive for God to keep me alive for another 8 years, because I'm going to be teaching Torah right here on this or on YouTube, wherever the technology takes us to do a live feed. But it's not going to be the whole thing. I'm going to just do one line or one sentence just to connect with it, like I'm going to start right now. So this week is Parshat Beshalach. They're learning 2 Sichot every week, 2 or 3. I'm going to say one line of each. In one talk, the Rebbe's talking about the splitting of the sea also. Or actually, as they came to the sea, as they arrived at the sea, it says, Vayitzaku b'nei Yisrael el Hashem. Jewish people cried out to God. And Rashi, the biblical commentator, says, they prayed. And then he brings 3 sources of where this crying out means prayer from. And Rashi says that they assumed the umanus, the profession of their forefathers, of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And he brings 3 examples of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, one of each. The Rebbe asks about 6 questions on this Rashi and kind of rips it apart in a beautiful way. And he says, look, if you see all the 3 examples that Rashi brought, none of them were where Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov prayed because they needed something from God. And there are examples in the Torah that show that Avram prayed when he was in trouble, Yitzchak prayed when he's in trouble, and Yaakov did so. But these 3 examples that Rashi chose had nothing to do with prayer in a time of need. And the Rebbe concludes from this and many other proofs that the Jewish people are prayers. We are a people who pray. A Jew is a prayer. Prayer as in a verb, one who prays. Not in a time of need. A Jew essentially is somebody who prays. That's what we do. Our profession is to pray to God. We're always praying. We're always talking to God, thinking about God. A Jew is a prayer. I coined that trademark. A Jew is a prayer. So that's one idea. The next one was about, as they were going through the sea, the next Sicha, the next talk, the Torah says, Vatikach Miriam HaNeviah Achot Aaron et Atof Biyada. Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took the drums, the cymbals in her hand, and she went out and she danced and sang with all the women as they were crossing the sea. So the Rebbe asks multiple questions, and on this Rashi also, Rashi explains this. Long story short, the Rebbe concludes that the reason why the Torah had to tell us that Miriam was a prophetess and that she was the sister of Aaron is because there's a question here. Moshe was the leader of the Jewish people. Moshe took the men, and he's saying, wonderful. Miriam, though she was his sister, she wasn't necessarily the leader of the Jewish people, and nowhere in the Torah or in the Midrash or anywhere does it say that Miriam consulted with Moshe and asked his opinion. Is it okay? Does it make sense to take the drums and the dances out into the sea? She didn't ask him. And if she didn't ask him, the question is, why is it that Miriam didn't ask her brother, the leader? And Rashi says, the Torah is telling us Miriam herself was a Neviah. She was a prophetess. And not only was she a prophetess that she didn't need to ask Moshe, because she knew what to do. She was Achot Aaron. She was in a sense even greater than Moshe, because her prophecy was before her prophecy was known, was that Moshe will be born. She was a prophetess while she was still Aaron's sister before Moshe came into this world. So the Rebbe says that though it says in the Torah that there's no prophet ever like Moshe, how could you say that Miriam was greater than Moshe in prophecy? The Rebbe says, but that, I think it's the Rambam, says it's only in that area of prophecy that Moshe spoke to God face to face. But in other areas of prophecy, there were other leaders whose prophecy exceeded that of Moshe, including his sister Miriam. Anyway, that's the story for today. I hope you join me. You don't have to join me for the next 8 years. That will be horrible, but that'll be amazing. But you can tap into the link at the bottom of the screen in the comments and connect to your comfort zone. 3 minutes a week, 10-minute share, 30-minute share, an hour share. And this way we'll know in 8 years from now, we'll say, I covered it. I learned every one of the Rebbe's edited, personally edited, published Likutei Sichos. God bless you. Have a good Shabbos and feed those birds. The Rebbe said it's a custom to feed the birds today. And he said it's so important to train our children. So go out there, I'll tell you what we've done for many years. Almost every year I do this. Take a plate, smear it with peanut butter if you're not allergic. Put bird seed on it or breadcrumbs or anything that birds eat. Put it outside, hang it on a tree, put it on your windowsill, feed the birds. The birds were with us in our exodus, walking through the sea. Let's pay them back. Have a good Shabbos.